And this is Jenn Gray, and welcome to Be Genuine Podcast. It is my heart that by the end of this episode, you believe that your story matters and that your authenticity is your superpower.
Welcome to the stage, Jenn Gray.
Oh, hold that thought. All right, friends, have you ever moved? You guys know how crazy, insanely stressful that can be. And I have a podcast partner that absolutely is a solution to this problem. If you are moving anywhere near the Atlanta area, you guys have got to call these guys. There is a company that genuinely makes the process as stress-free as possible. Atlanta Pack and Load boasts nearly 30 years of experience providing customized packing, moving, and storage solutions. They are fully licensed, fully insured, Better Business Bureau accredited, and the trusted moving partner for realtors all over Georgia. Call today for a free quote and make sure you let them know that you heard them right here on Be Genuine Podcast. 770-779-8959 or find them online. All of their info will be in the show notes. Move the smart way. Move the pack and load way. Hi, friends. I am so excited for this episode. First of all, if you were having a bad day, I guarantee you by the end of this episode, you will laugh, you may cry, you may pee in your pants, but I guarantee you will be filled with more joy than before you came to this podcast. But I am Jenn Gray. I'm your host of Be Genuine Podcast, and I cannot wait to introduce you to my guest today. So as you can already see here, if you're watching on YouTube, and if you're not, you're missing out on all of the live video action on YouTube. So first, let me plug YouTube there for a second. But I am so excited to have my friend Gretchen Kornutik. She is a powerhouse behind all things short-term rentals. She is not just a top notch. Listen, those are not nice words put together. She isn't just a top-notch property manager and savvy educator in investing and managing short-term rental properties. She is also the networking queen who leads a mastermind that empowers entrepreneurs to build and scale their businesses with precision. With her expertise in business processes and systems, Gretchen has transformed the way we think about property management and investing. And get ready for an absolute inspiring conversation packed with actionable insights. Gretchen has a story that I cannot wait for you to hear. She's got a whole lot more accolades than that, but this is not the podcast that I care about accolades. More importantly, Gretchen, I'm so excited that you're here.
Yay! I can't believe we're doing this finally.
I know, right? I'm like, how have we not done this already?
So funny.
But it fit only for season 2. So season 1 was not
so
worthy
of season 2.
Thank you.
I just listened to you and Logan and
so fun.
Just loved it. Yeah.
So first of all, if you follow me on social media, you've probably seen this face, and we want to share, first of all, that story. I think it's super fun. It's super inspiring, and just getting the gift of an unexpected friendship out of literally networking meetings that I was always going to. So, and then we're gonna talk about your story. But first, I'm gonna tell our story. I'm gonna tell it in my point of view, and then you can tell it from your point of view.
Yeah,
y'all. So this is my hometown. So I know I ended up in Texas for a bit, whatever, but this is still hometown for me. And I jumped into networking in 2023. You guys know that I was a total newbie to all the networking things. Well, then 2024 comes along, and then this chick and her husband show up, and they moved from Florida. And what I noticed after about month 3, I'm like, okay, is this my hometown or her hometown? Because she knows all of the people, and I am still barely dabbling and figuring out, where the groups are and how all the things work. And so I entered my own personal journey really towards the middle of the year last year. And I knew I needed to level up. I knew I needed to find new people. I'd gotten really, really comfortable. I loved the groups that I was a part of. And so I came to Gretchen and I'm like, hey, I know we don't really know each other, but we go to these meetings together. But can I go on the Gretchen tour? And I mean, what's the Gretchen tour? It is a thing now. It needs to be totally trademarked because you would make bucks if that's just extra stream of income.
Another one.
Let's just pour that down there. And so she's like, okay, I'm game. So my kids were out of town for a week, and y'all, I'm thinking I currently go to 2 networking groups. And so we'll add in a couple of others, right? How crazy could it be? This girl had me at 15 networking events in 4 days. Y'all, I questioned every ounce of extrovertedness that I had by Tuesday night. I'm like, I don't think I can people anymore. It was so much. And it was so good, like on so many levels. And it was so many wake up calls of just like, all these people are meeting all the time. And I had no idea. And I remember riding with her like the first day, and we rode like all day. I mean, mind you, we've seen each other for an hour on a Monday morning. And then now, I mean, I think I got your house at like 7 a.m. We got back at like 9 p.m. And I'm like, can I ride with you tomorrow? Like, I'm thinking, am I too much?
Want to? Do you want to?
I mean, I was just waiting. I felt too much a couple of times in my life. And so I wanted you to have an out that not only were you the host of the Gretchen Tour, you didn't also have to be the chauffeur of the Gretchen Tour. If you needed your space, I was trying to give you your space. And then we've never given each other space since. So
Not a single day.
that's about it. And anything I left out? Anything I missed?
No, I don't think so. Right. I mean, you and I met. I remember just thinking, gosh, I really, really like this chick. I want to get to know her for sure. Like, what's her story? And then we did actually sit down and have a one-to-one. So I am a huge fan of one-to-ones, or by the way, 6-to-6, which is a whole nother part of my networking scheme. And so we sat down in this lobby, and great 5 minutes of our conversation. And then somebody came into the room and they kind of hijacked it. And then another person came in and another person came in. And I think we were like 10 people at the end of this. And Jenn was kind of talking to somebody else and I was talking to somebody else. And so I just was like, okay, well, she's not really my person. I'm just, she's a great person. I love to get to know her. I can't believe she's a single mom. I can't believe her story. But I just got like the teeniest, tiniest bit of the iceberg. And so we just kind of went our separate ways, and we'd see each other, and great. And then this chick comes up to me and says, hey, can I go on the Gretchen Tour? I'm like, what is the Gretchen Tour? I just need to understand how you're meeting these people. And so part of my very long story is that I meet people, right? I love people. I like finding the right people, the right connections, and even the wrong connections are the right connections if you go at it the right way. So so it was a great week because I wasn't really sure that she was going to be able to deal with me. I'm a lot to take, and I get that. Not everybody can deal with me. Had some great people in the networking events at the very beginning who came up to me and they were like, who is this chick? Where does she come from? Why is she always here? Why does she always have all these crazy stories? What is her deal? She's gonna poof and disappear, which a lot of people do in networking. Mm-hmm. And so, surprise, I'm still here. Yeah. And I'm still in Jacksonville, and I'm still in Hilton Head. I'm still in all these places. I love my communities that I build wherever I go.
Yeah. So, I mean, I genuinely have never seen someone come into a city and just dive in. Like the fact that you even knew that they existed. I mean, I'm telling you, I was so new to the networking world. I knew that a chamber of commerce was a thing, and I went and found a business directory, and that was like the closest I knew anything about like businesses. But clearly, this is why whenever we do things, it's build and brand. I can only imagine which part that I'm like, she's all the building business part. And so all of the things, and that's what we found out as we got to know each other. We are so different, and yet so aligned. And that is what's so huge. So I've talked about it before, but my for 2024 was alignment. I had essentially cleared the table of my life and just situations and life and seasons and all of that. And I was very, very, very intentional about refilling that table. And I'm like, I want to be patient and just figure out. So honestly, the Gretchen Tour was like, I was using her. Really, I'm like, can you please just teach me the things? Because I don't know where that was, and had zero idea that it would build to such a depth of friendship. So again, we're like, when we go places, people, if we're without one or the other, people are like, where's Gretchen? Where's Jenn? And I'm like, okay, so we do actually exist, separate. I do have 4 kids, and she does have, a husband and a life and things, but most days we are together, and it's such a gift. So my encouragement before we jump in more to your story, Gretch, is for anyone listening who is trying to find their place or is looking for a friendship or looking for that alignment like I'm talking about. And I've had actually a lot of people that have reached out when I do talk about alignment. They're like, that sounds so great, Jenn, but how? Just know that I went to this same group that I met Gretchen in for almost an entire year before we actually really connected. And it wasn't that either of us weren't showing up. It's just like we hadn't, found our journey together yet, but just continuing to show up, continuing to be yourself, and take that step, take that first, what am I trying to say? Like your first step, right? In trying to,
you're kind of stepping into the arena. If we're going to use your,
hey, I love it.
your story, right?
Yeah.
Is you're stepping into the arena, and right now is not everybody's time to step into the arena or that arena.
Right.
Which is probably the more defining section of that is that we all have a time.
Yep.
Yeah, it's so funny. So I don't know who said it, but there's a great quote from years ago, and it's in the movie Eat, Pray, Love. And then it's another person who originally said it, but it was, please, 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 God, I need to win the lottery. Please, 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 God, I need to win the lottery. Please, 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 God, I need to win the lottery. And God finally answers back and says, please, 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 buy a ticket. And I think that's pivotal to this part of the story, right? Is that a lot of people go to networking, and number one, they don't know why they're there. Number two, they don't know how to get where they want to be, or they haven't established that goal line to be able to say, okay, how are these people my sales team? Or how are they my business builders? Or how are they my connections and all of this? To be able to identify that and know where you're going is so strategic. And the follow-up and the action plan, the people who show up, just once, maybe even just once a month in the very beginning, and they don't establish relationships, they don't get to where they're going because they're not putting themselves in, right? You've got to give of yourself instead of take.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's massive.
And that's honestly what attracted me to you so much. I didn't really understand at all what you did. Like we run in two totally separate lanes, right? Like I'm like, oh, that's cool. I don't know. Like, I don't get it. And now I could write your bio. Well, I mean, I did, but I mean, I understand some more words. Okay. I've been around enough conversations that I know a little bit more than I did 6 months ago. But also what I loved was every single time I saw her, or heard her, or she was at meetings, she's connecting somebody to somebody. And it was more that she even just knew everybody in the room. I watched her be intentional about, oh my gosh, I've got to introduce you to this person. I'm like, how did you even know that person? Right? Like that was like that's what triggered the Gretchen tour for me, because I'm like, okay, she's not just stepping into rooms. She's actually knowing people enough that she meets you and she's like, oh my gosh, I've got to connect you to these 4 people in these 13 different groups that I go to. Right. And that's a gift. It's so a gift. And so let's rewind it back to you, because what I love on this podcast is getting to highlight amazing people. And I believe that one of the biggest parts of life is we have these kind of like elbows of life, or these catalysts of life that causes us to pivot or to change or to jump in a new direction. And I know, personally, you've gone through a few of those or whatever, but will you take us back to wherever you want to take us back to? You can go to childhood or you can go to 5 years ago, but how did you get here? What brought you here? What pieces of your life, the puzzle put together that formed you to where you are right here in 2025?
Oh my gosh, yes. I could sit here for 6 hours, of course, and go through kind of my whole life story, but at New England, born and raised, mom and dad are still in the same house that I grew up in. Went to school in Connecticut and then to Boston. We lived a super simple life. I wasn't poor, but you might have thought that by looking at us. My mom was granola crunchy. She made our clothes. She cared about our experiences, which goes to kind of a lot of pivotal things in my life. I don't need fancy cars, fancy houses, because that's how I grew up, right? It was all about the experience. It was about the person who was in front of you, giving back, everything like that. So left Connecticut after that, went to Boston to school, and then met Mark, my husband, and we moved to Atlanta. And that was the beginning of kind of our real estate venture, right? So again, I went into my career kicking and screaming, nails down a chalkboard. Terrible kind of story, but Mark had that in his family. He had these great experiences from his mom and stepdad, who were completely different from his dad and stepmother, but all real estate based, investment based things that I was never exposed to in my life. I saw my mom, who was a master artist. I saw her struggle with trying to figure out how to be an entrepreneur and everything. And in her own right, she was super successful, but didn't know the things, right? And she also didn't have the skill set that we now have today. I love looking back and giving that older generation a lot of grace, because if I had to do what I do today back then, like hang me up by a cord. I mean, it's really kind of crazy what their experience versus ours. So not a lot of great memories that come up with certain things. all the way through that. But then on the flip side, amazing memories of things. So just taking salt and saying, okay, that's in the past. How did I grow? I have been given the most amazing experiences throughout my life. And the truth is, I think that everybody is, they just don't wake up to the fact that it's in front of them. And so I've been able to grab those experiences, right? My mom had a terrible car accident. She is, if she's listening, she's Dory. She's got short-term memory loss. And so I have to teach her how to use her phone all the time. I have to teach her different things, but her gifts are innumerable. I mean, she's magic in who she is. And so I had to find another pathway. I had to figure it out. I had to be on my own and pay for college. And so I did that by being a nanny. And I got to nanny for a family in Boston. It was part of the Fabulous Five of Fleet Bank, a big bank mergers. At a very young age, not knowing what I was being exposed to, I was being exposed to investments and bank mergers and all of that financial talk. I didn't want to go into finance. It's like, I just want to be a school teacher, or I just want to be a doctor. Like, I don't want to do any of this. Anyway, so I was exposed to that. And then I had a great privilege to work for the Seidel family, which is Ted Turner's daughter, and transition from that to working with their family and then their family foundation, Captain Planet Foundation, and traveling the world and being with all these amazing people, sitting down to lunch with just amazing people and having conversations because they're human, not because they're some famous person, right? They sleep on a pillow just like we do. They drive a car just like we do. And so just being really relaxed with humans. Everyone has a story, right? If you're homeless or you're the king, you have a story. Let's talk about that story. Let's talk about where you came from. So did that. And then the twins were born and we moved to Jacksonville, Florida, and just absolutely loved it. Loved my experience down there, and did real estate, dove in headstrong, transitioned into the crash of 2008-9, partnered up with some very smart people and learned a ton from them. So each of my experiences, I was picking up all of these tools for my toolkit that I didn't know I was growing, right? But amazing tools. And so at that point, I had built up, just building a business and being with people and understanding how to connect with people in different rooms at different environments, right? During my stay with the Turner family, I sat down with worldwide known diplomats, including people like Jimmy Carter and Gorbachev and some of these big ones, all the way down to staying at a true plantation where there are still not Black servants, but the heritage of the Black slavery and everything, and having conversations with them and just being real and sitting down and being real with these people and sitting at a table. And let's do that, right? To your point, Jen, let's sit at a table together and just experience each other together. It's really a fantastic promise in life of surprising gifts that we can kind of open up in these shells. If you're like, oh my God, there's a pearl in here. And it's everybody. It's not because you're rich or you're poor or you're Black or you're white or you're, God forbid, Republican or Democrat, whatever it is, right? It's because you're you. So anyway, yeah, moved down there and we just went headstrong into asset management, property management. I was on the auction block buying, had millions of dollars to buy up houses. We, for those of you guys in the real estate world, right, we bundled them up and stabilized them, renovated them, and kept the management. We had a great leader in our company who really had great foresight, and he knew how to forecast things. Flash forward, it turned into a build to rent strategy, and I bought this crazy house on the ocean, which deserves pictures and everything else, but we're going to flip it. And there's a much bigger story on this, but that house became our very first short-term rental. And this was before Airbnb was even Airbnb, right? It was just mom and pops renting out mountain houses, oceanfront houses. And I went looking for answers, and I dove into, right, because of this crazy tragedy, I renovated this house, got it under contract for sale, and a hurricane hit it. And, and so it's pivoting, right? At that point, you're like, oh my gosh, I've just lost this investor and all of us millions of dollars. What am I going to do? And there's always a solution. As soon as you let that storm pass, you've got to pick yourself up, put on your big girl pants, and really kind of just figure out what it is you're going to do, right? Okay, there's a solution. Where is it? And so we found the solution, and I dove into the short-term rental world again, kicking and streaming. Didn't think I was going to like it, complained about it, and absolutely fell in love with it. I absolutely saw the need that a realtor or a broker is assumed to understand how this process works, is assumed to understand hospitality and laws. And hey, by the way, how do we pay these taxes on these houses? And is there any legislation, right? This is way before registries and everything else were a thing. And so I went to find the experts. That's the next step is get in front of the people who know more than you do. Learn from them, figure it out. If you don't know the answer, somebody else has already figured it out. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. Somebody else has figured out that pivotal strategy. And so that's what I did, right? In 2021, that company sold, that much bigger company sold. And Mark and I had a total dumpster fire at that point. We made a strategic couple decision. I was sitting in this office, which had grown into a massive corporation, and I was sitting in the leadership team. And one of the head people in the office, there was a much bigger conversation happening, but she simply, in a straight face, looked at the group and said, so we don't pay these people to think. They need to do what we tell them. And my arms started crawling with anxiety. I just thought, who treats people like that? Who treats your employees like that? Who treats your team members like that? And I had been watching it for quite a while. I knew that there were changes on the horizon, but that was the break, right? I just sat there and I thought, I don't want any of these people to ever say that to anybody on my team. My team members are precious to me. When they need to be with their family, let them be with their family, because when I need them, they're always here for me because I treat them that way. And I knew that it had to break. And so it did. There was a pivotal shift. And at the same time, looked at just toxic behaviors that were happening. It was post-COVID at that point. Had probably made more money than I ever made because of COVID. I was on the really good side of it. And I just looked at Mark and I said, we gotta do something different. So we did. Mark is just an amazing husband. He puts up with my craziness. I am crazy analytical and spreadsheets and schedules and all the things.
I told you we were opposite.
Yeah. And so during a road trip that he took me on to calm me down, it was a 40-day road trip across the United States. He just said, Gretch, I think we should go back to Georgia. And a lot of other steps in there, but it was like, yeah, let's just go. And so we found our location in December of 23. We moved in January 3rd of 2024. And on January 6th of 2024, we were in our first batch of networking groups. I was like, we need to let these people know we are here. We are here and we are staying, and this is what we do. And yeah. And so, gosh, that was a lot, but that is the 30,000 foot view of that life train.
Okay, so many things that we're going to break down. What I love, let me fast forward to the end. What I love in the end is that when you say all of this, that your heart to take care of people is who you are. Mm-hmm. Like that's what, I mean, from the nannying to everything that you do as a mom and as a leader, and to see how that wove its way through. And when your people weren't being taken care of, that was when it's enough, because that doesn't align with who you are as a person. And then it's the faith, knowing that when you stand on that, the core values that I was talking about, right? It's like when have alignment and when we stand with our core values, it may not make it easy to stand up for that and to take that alignment, but it's always going to be worth it because that is who you are to the core. So I've heard you tell the story 100 times, but there was something different about how you just shared it. And that was like this light bulb moment. I'm like, yes, that's why this new rebuild is going to be so much more beautiful. And the pain of the rebuild is even more beautiful because it's in alignment. And because I'm telling y'all, I get to see behind the scenes. Like when she talks to, because listen, let's just talk about property management. When you say property management, I'm going to talk to all you people who don't know property management. It's like, I didn't know. I didn't even know, like even think about, like when I go and book an Airbnb, like there has to be a team that's going to go in there and make sure that all the toilet paper, all of the Dove soap that's not scented, so it's going to smell fresh, is going to be in there because everybody likes Dove soap. And you're going to have all of your sheets and all of your towels and all of your paper towels and all the things that you need. You got people that are going to put that, and you got people that are going to clean, and then you got people that are doing maintenance on the sinks or the things or all the whatever. There's so many things going into it because it's not real estate, it's hospitality. And I love when you say it like that because that's 100% what it is. But seeing the behind the scenes, so you're over all of this for dozens and dozens of properties, and to see how genuinely you take care of your people. I mean, that's why you have ultimate success even in front. I know you experience tons of success, but I know there's even more ahead of you because there's no way that that's not going to be rewarded, because not everybody treats people like you treat people. And so kudos to you for, even in the hard times, even when you feel like probably going and crawling in a hole and doing nothing. Okay, so listen, so like hurricane season, I mean, I'm like bringing her all the things. I'm like, I'm so sorry. I can't imagine the stress. Like, I don't even know. I can't do anything. I don't know what to do. Here's all the things. And because again, there's so many. So when you hear hurricane, you're thinking, like, I probably need to protect my family. She's like, I got all these strangers in all these houses, and I got to make sure everybody's okay, and all the things. And it takes a special kind of person to do that. And so my question for you, after recapping what you just said, is go back to childhood. What did you want to be when you grew up?
That's so funny. As a young child, I wanted to be a teacher. Which is funny because now, flash forward, which I didn't get into, is the teaching side of what I do now.
Oh, yeah.
For sure. I think I get that from my mom. My mom is a natural teacher.
Mm-hmm.
And so just teaching. And then the pivotal shift for me on the education platform was when my mom got in that car accident. I like taking care of people. I do. I want to make sure people are comfortable. I want to make sure they're not hurting. And that goes to everything, right? It does go to my teams, my employees, a lot of sorry about that. But the just taking care of those people fills my tank up. And knowing that if I ever need them, they're definitely going to take care of me because of the level of that structure. But when my mom got into the car accident, it was eye-opening, right? I was young and thought, holy mackerel, coincidentally, her car accident was right in Jacksonville, almost where I lived, so many years later. And so they had to transport her home. I couldn't get to her. I didn't know what was going on. She was in a coma and all of these things. I mean, it was just a massive, massive accident. And so when she came home, my dad just collapsed. I can picture him in the chair just collapsing. And he was like, Gretch, can you take care of her? My sister was away at college. My brother had left. He was going up to Denver. I was still in Connecticut. And I said, yes. And that was it. And then I really saw in that moment how hurt she really was. And I just said, I wish I had more tools to be able to take care of her. And so that was kind of the doctor train. I was going to go to school to be a doctor. And that's how I got to Atlanta, right? Mark and I. And then we lost some children. I had terrible pregnancies. And in that shift, it was like, okay, I never want to see a hospital again. I don't want to be part of this. I fell off the wagon. That was one of the dumpster fires of my life, right? That was a hard left turn. That was how I ended up not working with the Seidel and Turner families. I just needed to make a change at that point, right? We all have these pivotal shifts. And that's the beautiful thing, is wake up to it. Let's really just be okay with the fact that the pivotal shift happened and we learned all of these amazing things. We have all these amazing relationships. And now what's ahead? What's the next thing? And so it's super exciting to kind of go on the other side of that fire, on the other side of the pain and the rebuilding and the uncomfortableness, and go, amazing, right? Yeah.
Okay, so you just said something that was huge, is it's like stay awake to the need to pivot.
Mm-hmm.
I think so many people, and I use this word a lot because I don't know another better way to describe it, is people feel stuck, right? And even when they go through hard things, they still feel like there's things about their life that they can't control or they can't change or they can't move past or they can't shift. And I'm thinking about, your journey. I mean, I can only imagine how much joy it brought to be a part of the Turner family. Like, I've heard some of your stories and some of the places, you see on TV of Montana and his amazing properties, and you have all these personal stories, and like that was such rich memories that you have of that. And yet knowing that it was time to move on, right? And you didn't leave like with any, it wasn't like, peace out, I hate you. It's like, no, like this is just the natural transition. So why do you think that it's easier for you? Maybe easy is the wrong word. Why do you think you're so sensitive and open to the change and the transition, and you're not resistant at all? I don't feel like you're resistant at all to change.
Well, that's so funny because I think I'm very resistant to change. I think that you witnessed that this last week.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's just like when the hurricane hit the house. It's just like when we lost twins. It's just like when some of these things kind of come smashing into you. I feel that impact. I feel it fully, and it takes me down, just like, right. And part of this is mindfulness. Part of it is meditation, which I still have not mastered. And I am trying with all my might to master the meditation part. But but being able to then say, okay, in this moment that I'm in right now, I can feel my feet on the carpet. I can feel Jenn next to me. I can feel all of this stuff. I can feel my breath on my nose. Okay, so what is the next thing? And if the next thing is doing the same thing you've been doing and getting the same experience, is that what you want it to be? Or do you get uncomfortable and make that pivot, right? And so this last week, just a little transparency, is that I recognize the difficultness of some of the economy that we're going into. This is not politically driven. It's just completely the ebbs and flows of the cycle of our economy. And as a provider for my children and our lifestyle and everything else, I just was having a hard time seeing the other side of this storm, right? What is my forecasting? And so I just kind of, everybody does that, right? We fall down into these rabbit holes or whatever. And so the ability to then stand up and get yourself out of the rabbit hole. It's not one day. It's not 10 minutes. It can take weeks. It can sometimes take months, depending on who that person is or what their tools are. But I definitely feel the pivots. I definitely feel them hard, but I don't want to put that on anybody else. So that is probably my kryptonite, is that I keep that until I find a solution, because I don't want somebody else to carry that burden. There's a solution there, and let me get to it. Yeah. Kryptonite is a fun, sabotaging adventure.
Yes, it's like the absolute strength and the absolute downfall all in the same thing, because it's a gift. And then sometimes you are also desperately wanting someone to take a hold of maybe a little bit of the, what you're trying to hold on to and take care of.
You want that arm to come down into that rabbit hole and boost you.
Right, exactly. I need like a little boost.
But the problem is, it's kind of like the lottery ticket, right? You're not looking for the arm to hold you. You're sitting there going, and you don't see the arm sitting right there pulling you out. It's hard to see that arm when you're in it.
Dang. Yeah. Especially if you don't look up.
Yeah.
And you're just wallowing in it, and you don't. And that's where, for me, that's why it was like getting up and doing hard things was my way of like my mind of like, I have to move forward. I have to keep going. I cannot stop.
Yeah.
If I stop, I'm literally just going to like wallow in this self-pity, which gets us nowhere. And I love what you said too, is you are a very strong woman. You're an amazing leader. And yet there's days where it's just hard, right? It's just hard. It all just comes down. And the fact that you took time to just reconvene, and you were so intentional about what you listened to, about who you were around, about what you weren't around, and just gave yourself the space and the time. And I think for me, for my journey, up until probably 2 years ago, I never gave myself that space or time. Like, I'm like, no, like I have to be on. It's fake it, put it under the rug, put the masks on, and just go. And so the fact that you let yourself have that moment, I think that's an absolute strength, that anybody else who says it's a weakness is literally never faked it till they're made. Because I'm telling you, when you wear these masks, all that does is you become a person you don't even recognize.
Yeah.
Because you have no ability to actually deal with the reality of what's going on. And so giving yourself the space to be real and to figure it out is awesome. So cute as you. I know it was a hard week, and I know we're literally coming off of like probably one of your hardest weeks.
It's my hardest week in Georgia to date. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
It was a hard week, but the benefit is, right, is that I have this amazing group of people who I've surrounded myself with, because I've gone and I've found them. And that's so, like, it makes me sad that other people don't do that. I mean, just even people who don't own businesses, or people who are just doing maybe an Etsy craft at home or something like that. Go to a networking event, get out, go meet people, do these things. It doesn't have to cost money. It's not about money. It's about building your own love tank. It's about filling it, right? We were talking about that today, and that was part of this last week. Literally, we just had this conversation 45 minutes ago, and I said, I feel like my love tank is empty. I feel like I need some feeding into it. And the truth is, now saying this out loud, is that I need to also ask for my love tank to be filled. And that hasn't happened yet, because I'm still trying to figure out the solutions to these problems. So it's human, right? It's if we don't have these conversations, then we're never going to get comfortable with just being vulnerable and being real and growing together, because it's all a collaborative movement.
Right. Which is what we're both passionate about, is busting through this whole idea that business needs to look different than real life. And I think that for so long, that when you pictured businesses or entrepreneurship or even, success, it's the 3-piece suit, all of this, you got your life together, you know all the answers, you know the things, all, whatever. Like you aren't bothered by anything. You just, own the room or whatever. And I love that that's starting to break and people are wanting and they're desperate for real. And you can find a cookie cutter leader anywhere. Yeah. But what you don't always find is someone that genuinely cares with their heart. I mean, the fact that, rewind it back to your story, looking at the pivot and you decided that you're going to do short-term rental, you decided you're going to put this on Airbnb, and then you're looking for someone to teach you how to do things. Well, most people would have probably given up right about then. They would have counted their loss, been like, sorry about it, the hurricane ruined all of us, and let's go and find a new, I want nothing to do with houses ever again. And instead you're like, no, hold on. I think there might be another solution. And then you go and look for someone to lead you in how to manage this, how to do this. You got to tell your story. So what did you do when you're looking for someone, you're trying to find somebody to teach you how to do all the management information? Where'd you go? Do you have a mentor who taught you? So, what did that look like?
Yeah, no, not really, not right out of the gate. So, I had lots of property management, long-term tenants, property management experience, etc. But this was a whole new world. And so I connected with a gentleman who owns a very large company. It's on the NASDAQ in the short-term rental space. It wasn't at that time. Remember, this was years ago. And I sat down with him and I just said, hey, what can you do for me? Can you tell me about this property? Can you tell me about the process? And he literally sat there and said to me, I don't care if you make money. It's my system or you don't use it. And I thought, what? I'm sorry, what did you just say to me? And so then I got up from the table, and I went to another company. I went to this older lady who owns a company called Ren down in Ponte Vedra in St. Augustine, Florida. It's still, I think, in business. She's got to be close to retirement. Sweetest, kindest person. She just didn't have the bandwidth to teach me, but she gave me some clues, right? And then neighboring property, there was this old general contractor who had owned this property. And so he said, Gretchen, get on this website, Vacation Rental by Owner. By the way, hashtag now it's VRBO, but this was years ago. And you got to do this and this and this. And oh, by the way, there's this thing that you have to fill out down at the city. So then I went down to the city and this woman's like, I don't even know what you're talking about. So then I talked to somebody else and they're like, I don't know what you're talking about. And so I started Googling and I started looking and so it was like that. I mean, it was about a 6-month process, right? During that time, I was renovating the house back to what it should be. We had kind of moved into the house and we were filling it with furniture and didn't even realize that we were creating a new model, a new structure, an inventory list of what should be there and everything else. But we were creating this new business model kind of behind the scenes, my family and I. And so then I went and found, the people who are now the Expedia folks and the people who were writing the algorithms for what would become Airbnb and everything, and talked to them, traveled around, and I met people. I put myself in the car and said, I'm going to go find these people. Where are they and how do they do this? And when I realized what a basket case the entire industry was, it literally was like the wild, wild west. And I said, you know what? Screw it. I can do it better. And I did, we grew Suncoast Beach Vacations. It was great. I mean, amazing 5-star properties. From 150 square feet. It was the first tiny house, 150 square feet to, an 8,000 square foot mansion. Actually, I think it was bigger than that. 15 bedrooms and on the most amazing beach in Florida. And so understanding all those pivots and what that looked like, but I just loved it. I love taking care of these people. I also loved that they checked out and they went home. I was like, okay. And so if you're a bad guest, bye, you're later, Yeah. And if you're a great guest, I'm going to send you an invitation to come back. And yeah, so it was really just saying, okay, somebody has already figured this out, right? It's just like podcasting. It's like nursing. It's like social media, whatever it is your skill is or your innovative thing is, the actual business structure has already been done and it's been done 10 times better than you could ever do it by yourself. So you have to find those people.
I love that. And so one of my favorite stories too is that how you found these people. You were just like, I just called. I just picked up the phone. Nobody told me I couldn't do that. And I'm like, you and me are not like the other. Like, which one of these is not like the other? I'm like, that's awesome. And that's why courage is my word for this year, because I realized I thought I was pretty courageous. And then I met Gretchen. I'm like, okay, I'm a chicken. But I mean, again, why you didn't let any excuse come in your way? You just are like, I'm going to figure this out and I'm going to find the resources.
Yeah, so I don't think it's an excuse as much as the fact that I honestly, truly in my heart believe that the homeless person or the receptionist and the CEO or the king are the same person. I really don't look at those two things in any different terms. And I think that that's the key. Because when you have to reach out to that CEO or that bigwig or whoever it is, they are the same human as you. They started as somebody who didn't know things. And it's just a simple ask. If they say no, great. But most of the time they say yes.
So that's a huge nugget. So if you need to get in touch with someone, if you're like, if I only could do this, then here's your ticket. Here's your reminder today. Like, go and do it. Worst thing they're going to do is tell you no. Worst thing they're going to do is not answer. Worst thing they're going to do is like slam the phone down. I don't think people do that in 2025. We don't slam the phone down. We just press end. So you don't, there's no slamming of the phones. So we can totally get rid of that option. But yeah, no, I love that. So I love that even the hardest things in life have caused you to then go back to what you're good at. And what you're good at is taking care of people. And even down to, I spend a lot of time in the Kornutik household. And I mean, first of all, girlfriend can cook. And so that is a huge bonus, which has been an amazing gift to my life. But literally one of the most hospitable people like I've ever met. And thinking of all those details and to see that how you may be a really good, you're like, oh, I'm a pretty good house guest or house host, right? You're like, you love to host people.
Yeah.
So she's just done that on steroids. Like now she gets to like host people and treat people as if they are being welcomed into her own home as she's managing these properties. And she's treating them like, again, she's welcoming them into her space and making them feel loved and welcomed. And she thinks of all of the little details. Like I'm telling you, I went to one of her real estate trainings because I was a good friend and I was trying to understand what she did. And I was trying to understand all the details and listen to this presentation. And I was fascinated. I'm like, how did you even like know that some people like to have pour over coffee and some people like to have a Keurig and some people still like to have like a regular pot and they just like to have the tea and then we're going to have the honey and we're going to have the sugar and we're going to have, and I'm like, this is for one house. This is for one room. Like we're not even into all the rooms. And so all of the details that you work together like this well-oiled machine with your people. And that's another thing that I love that brings me the next thing that you're so good at is businesses, like all kinds of businesses, because the same detail in which you are hospitable and you put all those things in the right places in the right rooms, you understand the right pieces that you need in businesses. Where do you think that comes from? Like any idea of where that part of your world
just crash and burning? Right. Listen, I didn't go to business school. Yeah, it's crash and burning. So I put myself in front of the right people, first of all, right? I ask the questions. How did you get there? Right. Some of these networking meetings, when you really get in front of the people that you're either envious of, or you're like, I could never be like you. You spend your time saying, oh, how's the weather? And right. How much are you going to learn from how's the weather? Rather than, hey, what is the structure of your business and how do you get tax deferrals from that? Because I'm a small business leader, right? Said nobody ever except for people like me. I'm like, I need to understand how you did that. I need to understand how you made that investment grow from $2,000 to $200,000 in 6 months. What exactly did you do? I don't need to know your exact numbers. I don't need to know what you invested in. I need to know your structure. And that's so important, right? It could be a flower shop. It could be a bakery. It could be podcasting. It could be property management. It could be so many different things. And we're not having these conversations as small business leaders. So the truth is it's literally just getting myself in front of the right people and asking the question, hey, listen, here is my problem. I've got these 15 people on payroll and currently this is my tax number and this is what I'm doing. And this is how much I'm paying for it. What am I doing wrong? And so then somebody in the room can say to you, well, you're completely doing it wrong because after you get over the number 10, you have to, and do this, you have to pivot. And you're like, I didn't know that. And so I think, that's the business side of it is actually listening to people and saying, I'm not the smartest person in the room. Could you please tell me how you did this? And they will tell you.
I love that. So, okay. So, I'm all up in this conversation because it's absolutely authenticity, 110% vulnerability, enough to say I'm a beginner. And listen, you may be 10 years into business, but if you are a beginner and thinking about your tax strategy, then you are a beginner and thinking about your tax strategy, right? like knowing and having enough self-worth and confidence and saying, it's okay for me to admit I don't know something. The only way I'm going to learn what I don't know is by telling someone I don't know what I don't know. Yeah. And so many times we're afraid to show up as weak when I don't know that anybody's ever judged someone for coming in and saying they don't know something. Like, we don't expect a kid who's entering school to know what they're going to take the test on before they learn it. Right? But nobody gave us a book on this. Nobody learned the ins and outs of business structure in any type of school, unless you went to business school, probs. But I didn't do that either, right? Like, most of us fall into entrepreneurship because we're passionate and have a vision and have a dream, and we want financial freedom. We want time freedom. And you take these bunch of freedom junkies, and now you throw us businesses, and we're like, let's tie these balls up in the air.
Yeah.
And hope that it all is going to fall, and then, all the things. Yeah. And instead of actually owning it, like, so for instance, this podcast, even, this was essentially a hobby of mine. I would have said it was a passion. It was a side business. There was no business to it. I made no money. I was just putting stuff out, even haphazardly. There was no consistency. It was like every other week-ish. And until I decided, right, that it was going to be a business and I was going to use it as a platform to another level add value. And so for how many business owners, like, you just need to say, hey, guess what? I'm treating my business like a side hustle, and I'm wondering why it's not paying me like a business. I'm wondering why I'm not acting like it's a business, when you actually just need to ask a whole lot more questions. And that's why I'm always fascinated. I just sit back and that's what I love when we get to do stuff together, right? I get to be the mindset. And we talk business, I'm like taking all the notes. I'm like, okay, I need all the things, and the reason this is even monetized podcast is because Gretchen's like, why don't you? And I'm like, that's a great idea. Like, why not think of that? And again, it's finding the people that help fill in the gaps of the puzzle that you're building. And
those people don't stay the same, right? I mean, you think about somebody who is coming out of high school or college, and so they use their mom's CPA who's sitting at the kitchen counter across the street, right? That works until you now have a 401k and a corporate job, right? That CPA isn't equipped for that same structure. And now I'm going to become an entrepreneur because I'm done with being in the corporate world, and I've got to pivot and I've got to do something else. And now I've got this 401k, and now and how do I invest for the future? And how do I pay myself? But then I've got to deduct back to zero every year. Wait, how do I deduct back to zero and still qualify to buy a house? And like, how do we not have these conversations? Yeah. So it's so funny. Actually, one of the things you said made me think of, again, I can't remember. Gosh almighty. A lot of us are acting like the supporting character. I know what it is. It's the holiday.
Yes, the holiday. Our deep, deep mindset strategy, things that we.
Yeah. So JJ's in the podcast now. Anyway, but in that he says that you're acting like a supporting character, and you're the leading lady, or you're the leading character, whoever that is. And so get your heck out of that supporting character role and get yourself into the leadership role. Like, that is massive. And you are worthy. You can do it. Everybody who has done it has been where you are, and they just had somebody else alongside them, aligning them to kind of get them up that ladder, right? And so part of that getting up the ladder, and you and I have talked about this, is making sure that you look back and you pull the next person up the ladder, because that's your job. Your job is to be there for them. And so that's kind of me trailblazing into these neighborhoods, right? I know that there's entrepreneurs who are here. They don't understand or give a tinker's darn what I do, but what I can give right now is connection. I can spot that this person's stuck, or this person's lost, or this person, whatever, and then connect them with somebody else. And maybe they're my people and maybe they're not my people, but in the end, they'll both remember where I was in that puzzle piece, and hopefully remember me when they need me, when it's the right time.
Yes. I love that. Okay. So as we are wrapping up, I could talk all night long, and of course we'll talk as we go with this, but, so as we're closing, so first thing, what you mentioned, like meditation, that's something that you're doing. Is there any like great resources that you are loving right now, whether it's from personal development to mindset to meditation, that you want to talk about, want to share?
Yeah, I mean, so one of my big Achilles heels that has happened as I've gotten older, right? I didn't really have it as a child. I had it a little bit, is anxiety, right? Everyone talks about anxiety. I haven't ever really been strapped with it. I was strapped with it at a debilitating level when I left my old company. I didn't know what to do. This dog is funny. And I needed to kind of figure out what that looked like. I didn't really understand the meditating part of it. I knew that being in the sunshine, right? I am a solar powered human. The sunshine is really a huge thing for me. And so I also needed to be able to match those things in my life, right? Fill my brain, educate my brain, my process, etc. So right now, my two things that I don't miss is I listen to this great podcast called The Daily Mastermind. And it's just really, really great because it's nuggets. It's nuggets on marketing, and then it's nuggets on mindset, and then it's nuggets on business and accounting and crazy spreadsheets and new AI and all these things. But it immediately awakens my mind to really positive affirmations of growth in business. So it keeps me business centric. And then I end my day with Calm. So I am addicted to the app Calm. I have been now for a long time. My sister-in-law now works for the company, which is hilarious. So I love that part of it. But I was addicted to it beforehand. And they have sleep stories. And so sometimes the sleep stories can be for just meditating your way through high anxiety stress. And sometimes it's just sleep stories about trains going through the Scotland wilderness or Mama Kelsey telling you the rules of football. But what it does is it takes my overactive brain and it just kind of shuts it down. We really, really, with all of our screens and lights, it is over exacerbating the dopamine in our brains. It's an actual physiological thing that's happening. And so we're losing our sleep and we're becoming high stressed. And so we need to start starting and ending our day without any type of blue light. And so those are two ways I can do it, is still have the interaction of kind of the screen without the screen, is I'm listening to it. I'm listening to things that are happening. I get in the shower and the mastermind is playing. I get those little nuggets and I go back. And so what I love about it is that he references a lot of other podcasts, or he references a lot of other books. So then I pivot and I go and I read those books, or I go and I listen to that podcast, which is super cool. But those are my two high things that I do every day.
I love it.
Yeah.
Okay. So closing out, I ask this question to everybody. You know, the theme of the show is your authenticity is your superpower.
Yeah.
So in that and in your world and your life and who you are, how would you say that your authenticity is your superpower?
I mean, that's a tough statement for me just because of how tough this last week has been. But in the end, what I say to people, sometimes I'm very brash and rough, but it's honest. It's transparent. I hope always that I'm presenting myself or giving to people in kindness and that I'm being transparent about it. I don't ever want to go back and say, shoot, I shouldn't have said that to somebody because I wasn't honest about it. And sometimes that's hurtful and sometimes it's not. But my authenticity is my transparency. And, you know, in teaching people now how to invest in properties and teaching people how to just become educated in real estate and teaching realtors how to become more educated, which they need to be. I want them to have a tool. And so then I also need to have that too, right? Is, hey, listen, if you call me and I don't know the answer, it's okay. I'm going to find somebody who does, or I'm going to tell you where you need to go and find somebody who does, because we need to step up for ourselves, each one of us. I'm not the answer for everybody, but I am the answer for me and you're the answer for you. So, so if I can give that to people, I love it.
I love it.
Yeah.
You're awesome. Thank you for coming on here and for sharing your story and all of the things, and for being you and for being a powerhouse in my life, and for literally
Thank you for being you.
Off the ledge. I feel like sometimes I'm like, I don't even know what to do. And she's like, let's go for a walk. Let's get out the brown paper. Let's get all of our ideas out. And that solves all the problems, right? And they're like, okay, here we go. Creative juices are flowing. We're back off the ledge. We're good. Let's go. Let's move it. So again, forever thankful for your friendship and what you mean to me. And
Thanks
so
for you.
Thank you, friend.
Yeah.
And so as I close, I'm going to close the same way I always do. I love you and I believe in you. And that may sound super crazy because I may not know you. There's people who literally hate people for absolutely no reason. And I will always choose to love you until I meet you and find the millions of reasons there are to love you. I hope you have an amazing week and you guys keep being genuine. I'll see you next week. All right, friends, one quick thing before we jump in today's episode. I am so crazy excited to shout from the rooftops. Our podcast partners, our first partner is Dr. John D'Ambrosio. He is the owner, CEO, mastermind behind the Center for Life Enhancement. If you are anywhere within driving distance of Atlanta, Georgia, or you want to hop in an airplane, it's legitimately worth it. He helps people achieve optimal health and function through a unique whole body approach to chiropractic care. At the Center for Life Enhancement, he utilizes wellness stacking, combining biocharger, gentle yet precise chiropractic adjustments, zone technique and cranial release, and brain tap to restore balance and enhance the body's natural ability to heal. His focus is on optimizing function, helping clients move, feel, and live better every day.